This is a full tutorial on how to use the Alesis Sample Pad Pro. The Alesis Sample Pad Pro comes pre-installed with 200 internal sounds and 10 drum sets. But no one buys this for the internal sounds. We buy this so you can use samples. And if you want to use samples, you'll need one of these guys. This is an SD card. Don't buy a micro SD card, buy the regular sized SD card. And make sure that you buy one that's 32 gigabytes or less. The larger SD cards won't be recognized by the pad. Also, when you're installing samples onto this thing, they have to be 16-bit WAV files, mono or stereo, and make sure you don't make any folders on this. I know everyone likes to organize things, so you'd want to have a folder for your snare, for your kick, for your loops and stuff. But if you do that, you won't be able to find them when you have this installed in the slot right here. You won't be able to find them inside the interface. If you have something like an MP3 file and you don't know how to convert it to a WAV file, Alesis made that really easy. I'll leave the download link to this in the description below. But you go to their website, their Alesis Sample Pad Pro page, downloads, and right there is an app you can download. What you do is you get your MP3 file or whatever file isn't working because it's not compatible. A lot of times that's just because the file's too large or because it's in the wrong format, like MP3. What you do is you drag that file into this system right here, and then out pops the right version of that file, a WAV file that is 16-bit. This is really helpful that Alesis made this program because even if you don't know anything about bitrate and WAV files and MP3 files, all you got to do is drag your file into the converter system and out pops a version of that file that will work with this. The only way that it might not work, even if you converted it, is if the file is too large. So you might have to find a way to make it a little bit smaller. Okay, so now that you've got your sample, you've put it through the Alesis converter system so you know it will work with the sample pad. How do you actually get that file to the Alesis sample pad? There's two ways to do this. The first way is just to pop out the SD card and plug it straight into your laptop via a port on the side or maybe an adapter. There's ways to do that. Or you can plug a USB cable from the back right here, going from this to your laptop. If you want to go that route, you have to press and hold the left and the top buttons, and then go all the way down the menu, down here to load samples via USB. So when you do that and you press the right arrow like that, now it's in a mode where it can be recognized by your laptop. Because you can't just plug this straight into your laptop and then load samples, you have to press these buttons and go over to that menu and enable it so that it can receive samples. But for me, I found out that the easiest way is just to load them onto the SD card directly. That's the way that worked for me. All right, so now that all that's out of the way, let's talk about how to actually get around the screen, how to plug in extra pads, how to layer sounds, and all that really fun stuff that you came here for. So in the Alesis Sample Pad Pro, there's pretty much only 3 menus to go through. You got the main menu right here, which you'll do 90% of everything you're gonna do right here. Alesis wanted to make it so you could just access nearly everything from one screen. There's also 2 other screens you can get to. By pressing the left and top button, you can get to this screen. And by pressing the bottom and right button, you can get to this screen, all right? But most of the time, you're just gonna be messing around with this screen right here. This is the main menu. So let's talk about how to actually get around. Use the top and bottom arrows to actually move around the kit. Now, unfortunately, let's say if you're right here in reverb and you wanna get to tuning, you can't press the arrow button, because if I press the arrow button, look at that, it just changes the value of the reverb. So unfortunately, it takes a long time to scroll through everything. Not really a fan of that, but whatever. Let's start up here at the top. So the first option is kit. So you can move between kits by pressing the arrow buttons right there. It takes a while to load if you've got lots of samples. If you got a sample loaded to every single zone, it's gonna take you like 17 seconds to load. So, kind of go easy on the number of samples per kit if you wanna have faster load times. Below that, we have pad. So instead of hitting the pads, you can actually scroll through the pad options like this. So you don't have to hit every single pad just to edit them. If we go over to the next one, this is location. So you can edit the internal sounds. And if you press the left button, you can edit the card sounds. Because if that's nice of them to do this, because you don't have to scroll through all 200 sounds just to get to the samples that you loaded on. So if you want to choose a sound, let's say we hit this zone right here. If we want to assign an internal sound, you have it highlighted as internal. Go over, and now you can scroll through all the other sounds. Now, notice one other thing that pops up when we have a location card selected. We've got a layers option. If we go back to internal, there is no layers option. So if we go over here to layers, now we can choose between layer A and layer B. With layer A and layer B, you can assign 2 separate sounds to happen every single time you hit a zone. Now, there's a way to make it so if you hit a zone lightly, only one layer triggers. So let's say I wanted to have a cowbell and a snare sound. I can have it so layer A, cowbell, only triggers if I hit it softly, and layer B, snare, only triggers if I hit it really hard. There's a way to do that, but that's how you select the layer. So let's go back down one more to the sounds. Right now I haven't selected a sound. And remember, we're adjusting pad 1 right there. If I go over, I can go through all of the different sounds on the card. Now, unfortunately, if you don't, quickly go through all the sounds, it will load every single one. So if you know the sample you're trying to access is at the very back, just hold this down and try to go through them really quickly. Otherwise, it'll take you like 5 seconds just to go between the different samples. And again, if we go back up here to location and we press over, now we can scroll through all the different sounds that are internally on the Alesis pad. All right, so let's go down one more. Now we have tuning. You can tune this up 4 and down 4. Now, unfortunately, this isn't some sort of advanced tuning where it keeps the length of the sound the same. It just speeds up the sound or slows down the sound to adjust the tuning. All right, so we go down one more. We have sensitivity. Now, in an update that Alesis did to this pad, they tied sensitivity and threshold together. So whenever you turn down the sensitivity, you're also adjusting the threshold. One major problem people have with this pad is they'll hit this zone and this zone will trigger, or they'll hit this zone and this zone will trigger. So the way to adjust that is to bring down the sensitivity of everything down to like 1 or 2. That should help you out a lot. And yeah, sensitivity is an issue with this pad. You got to really lower down the sensitivity in order to get crosstalk to stop happening. There's another way to fix this, which I'll talk about in a second. If we go down, we have panning. So if I strike a pad, I can make it go left 1, 2, 3, 4, or right 1, 2, 3, 4, or just come out of both headphones or both speakers, which is center. If we go down one more, we have reverb. The reverb isn't amazing, but I'm glad it's an option. You can go all the way up to, what is it? You can go all the way up to 10. And then we've got level. That's how loud each pad is, how loud each sample is. If we go down, we can choose the MIDI note. This only matters if you're going to plug this into like a drum module, if you're going to plug this into your laptop. If we go down one more, we have mode. This is how you can affect what happens to each sound or each sample. So for example, if I have a sample of a guitar loop right here, and it plays for 1 measure or 1 bar, I hit that, I can make it do a lot of different things. So right now, it's in mono. So when I hit it once, it will play once and then stop. If I hit it once and it's halfway through that sample and then I hit it a second time, it will cut off the first sample that was playing when I was first hitting it and then play the other sample on top of it. If we go over here to poly, if I hit it once, it will play that guitar sample. If I hit it again halfway through that first sample playing, it will just layer this one on top of it and it will sound like a mess the more times I hit it. If we go over one more, we have loop. So that means when you hit it once, it will just play over and over and over again. If we go one over after that, you can press it in order to stop another loop from playing somewhere else. If we go over here to TMP, that's tempo. Basically, you can strike the pad a bunch of times and that will set the duration of the metronome. So instead of typing in 100 BPM, you can just sort of feel how fast you want the metronome to go and it will set the metronome at that speed of you tapping it. If you go over one more mode, that's hat. So if you want to plug in like a hi-hat controller piece or something, that's what mode you would set that to. And that's all the modes. Wait, let me look up what the hat means. When a pad or external trigger is in hat mode, striking this pad or extra trigger will trigger one of the samples assigned to the 5 hi-hat locations of each kit. Hi-hat open, hi-hat mid, hi-hat closed, hi-hat chick, and hi-hat splash. The position of the hi-hat pedal sold separately will determine which of the 5 currently assigned hi-hat samples of the kit will trigger. If we go down one more, we have velocity. This is basically a threshold. Remember how I was talking about layers earlier? You can make it so a zone like this one has 2 layers. One sounds a cowbell, one sounds a snare. The cowbell only sounds off when you hit it softly, and then the snare only sounds off when you hit it really loud. You can set this with the velocity control right here. Now, unfortunately, you can't do this with internal sounds. So I have to go back up here, and I have to select location, card, and I have to select a sound from the card. Okay, so now we have this guitar loop. Let's go back down to velocity. Now it will let me change the value right here. So for example, if I wanted to have layer B, which I'm on right now, if I wanted to have this layer only happen when I hit it pretty hard, then I can set the beginning value to, I don't know, 100. So I have to hit it between the values of 100 and max, which is 127, in order for me to hear this guitar loop. And if I go back up here to layer A, now I can set this to, go back here. I can set this to a different guitar loop. And if that will load for a second, see that takes a while to load. Now I go back down and I can set this so it triggers when I hit it softly, but when I start hitting it hard, so let's say trigger it at 98. So I can hit it up to 98. And then if I hit any harder than that, then it will trigger layer B. or I can make it so at any velocity, it will trigger both sounds at the same time. So that's what that value means. Now, a really good use of this is to avoid that crosstalk issue again. So for example, if this pad, you're hitting this pad over here, and then this pad over here triggers, you can fix that problem by setting the value of this to be a little bit higher. So if this is always triggering, even though I've got the sensitivity really down low, I can set this velocity to, I don't know, maybe I have to hit it at least 30. That should help fix the crosstalk issue. So when I hit this, this shouldn't sound off anymore. Again, this only works with samples. It doesn't work with internal sounds. So if you want to be able to have that extra degree of control over crosstalk, you got to start using more samples than you do internal sounds. So going down one more, we have MGRP. This is a group setting. So if I wanted to group these two pads together, so if I hit that pad and then I set it to, I don't know, group 2, and if I hit that pad and then I set it to group 2, I can make it so whenever I hit this pad, whatever was playing over here stops automatically because they're in the same group. You can have up to 16 different groups, and you can only have one pad being one group at any given time. Okay, so let's talk about the different other menu options. So again, if you hold down left and up, as you can see, they've highlighted it right there, which buttons to hold down at the same time. If you hold down both of those, you have this menu option right here. So the first one is metronome, and if we press the right button, we enter. So that the right button is always enter when you're in a menu like that. So you press the right button, you're in the metronome menu. You have the ability to make a switch, set it off. We're going to talk about that in a second. You have the ability to change how the metronome sounds. So, you know, metronome like voice, someone telling you 1, 2, 3, 4. You can have it sound like sticks, whatever you want. Go down one more. We have tempo, level, how loud it is, and time signature. All right, so if I go back to options by holding down those two buttons right there, you can go to foot switch settings. Now you can plug a foot switch into the back of this, which we're going to talk about in a second, but you can make the foot switch do different things. So for example, you can make it so when you hit the foot switch, everything stops. You can even plug a pad into the foot switch. In my review, I plugged in a white cap percussion rubber pad, and I just hit that whenever I wanted all the samples to stop. Now remember, mistakes happen. Either crosstalk will accidentally happen, or maybe you accidentally hit the wrong pad. So having an all-stop foot switch or an all-stop pad is really useful. But you also can make it do other things too. So all-stop, you can have next kits, previous kits, tempo, click, and then back to all-stop. You can plug in a foot switch that has an A and B, I believe, like 2 foot switches, so you can have one pedal that can do 2 different things at the same time. All right, so let's go back to options. Go down one more. This is where you can adjust all your hi-hat settings. Back to options. We go over here to MIDI. We can do the receive channel, receive program changes, send program changes, and MIDI clock. I'm not a MIDI expert, so I can't really go in depth on that stuff. Go over here to other, press enter by pressing the right button. And now you have the pad curve type. This is like how it responds to your playing, kind of like sensitivity, but this adjusts how it responds to your playing. If we go down, we have the auto shutdown time. This is normally set to like 30 minutes or an hour when you buy it with factory settings. If I were you, I would turn this completely off, because imagine you're playing live at a concert and you're half an hour into the concert and this randomly shuts off in the middle of the gig. That's like the worst. So going back to options, now we have the load samples via USB MIDI thing. All right, so let's go over here to the save menu. This is very, very important. You're gonna have to save this thing all the darn time. It does not auto-save anything. Remember how I was adjusting reverb and sensitivity and stuff? Yeah, that progress is probably gone by now because I didn't press save. So you wanna make sure you save kit by pressing the right button and then clicking yes, and now it's saved. Go down to exit. And you're also gonna wanna make sure that you save your global trigger settings every single time you do anything. And then last but not least, we have the copy function right here. Remember how there's 10 internal kits on this pad? Well, you can have up to like, I don't know, like 99 kits, but you have to press the copy button, and then it will say, do you wanna copy kit to kit 14? And I can say, confirm. You can even adjust what kit you want to copy it to. So I'm going to say confirm, and now I have 14 kits. Until recently, I only had 13. And yeah, confirm. Exit, and now we're back here. Now let's look at the back of this thing. If I can loosen it. Okay, so let's do a rundown of all the ports on the back of this thing. So over here on the far left, you have got this aux volume knob. You got the aux import. So if you want to plug in your phone and play to that, or plug in an iPad or plug in your laptop, you plug an aux cable into that, and this is your volume knob for that. You got the power button. To turn this on, you have to hold it down for 2 to 3 seconds. If you're having problems where blue lights are flashing and it's not actually turning on, you have a faulty power adapter or faulty power brick. So you just have to call Alesis and buy a new one of these. Sometimes they're faulty. Over here, we have a kick and hi-hat set of ports. You have two little switches right here. Trigger, switch, switch, variable. So let me explain what all those do. If you have a pad or a kick drum pedal where you're actually hitting something, then you'll want to switch it over here to trigger. If you have a guitar foot switch that you want to use as a kick drum pedal, then you'd switch it over to switch. Over here on hi-hat, you have variable and switch. So if you have a hi-hat controller pedal, like the Alesis one you're supposed to buy, then you set it to variable. If you have a guitar foot switch, you'd put it over here to switch mode. Now the port next to that is called foot switch. This is where you'd plug in an extra pad to start and stop the metronome or whatever, or you can plug in an actual guitar foot switch. And then we have pad 1 and pad 2. Pad 1 is dual zone, so you can plug in a snare, get the rim and the drum head sounds. Or pad 2 is just a single zone, like a single zone pad for an extra splash, an extra floor tom, whatever you want to do. The main out right and left, so you can go to the speakers or whatever recording device you have. You got MIDI in and out. You can actually plug this into a drum module and use your drum module sounds instead of these sounds if you want. And then you have USB MIDI. On the back right here is how you actually mount the darn thing. So as you can see right here, I've got this mount. This is from a Cat Percussion KT4 drum module. This does not come with a mount, but they're incredibly cheap. You can find them on eBay, just a universal drum module mount. They're like $5-10, whatever. So in order to mount this, there's several ways to do that. As you can see on this Go Edrum drum rack, I've got this little clamp right here. And so I can just slide this right onto that. If you have an extra cymbal stand, you can mount it onto a cymbal stand as well. So all you got to do is take off the boom arm and then just slide this right onto your cymbal stand socket, whatever it's called. And that's how you can mount it. There's also a pearl clamp you can buy, so you can mount this onto a hi-hat stand or onto your drum rack if you want to do it that way too. Try to do it at a little bit of an incline so that you're not playing it flat. When you're playing it flat, you're going to accidentally hit zones when you don't mean to. This is kind of what it looks like. So if it's flat, this part of my stick will accidentally hit this zone while I'm trying to hit this zone. So when you played it in incline, you're probably not going to accidentally hit the wrong pad. And if you're wondering whether or not you can turn off these lights, I haven't found a way to do it. Maybe there's a way, maybe there's a hack, maybe there's a setting, but I have not found that. You're stuck with these lights. But they're still pretty useful though, because if you hit this zone and it lights up blue, and then you look back and you realize you're playing the wrong sound, you know which one you hit because it's still lit up blue. So that's actually pretty useful. You can see what you accidentally hit so you can hit it again to stop that sound from playing. So that's the video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you got more tips I forgot to mention in this video, be sure to leave them down in the comments below. I'll read them and I'm sure a lot of other people will benefit as well. Hope you guys have an amazing day and I'll see you in a few.